Anime of the Week is a show where I watch every goddamn seasonal anime until you vote for me to stop. Polls are in the description, let's roll. 30 seconds into the summer anime season and my body is already riddled with cancer. Take any moment from this episode and I could explain how it's a piece of shit, but the biggest embarrassment here is awful character design and animation direction. I'm not talking about how the characters look as still drawings, which is plenty obnoxious. What struck me was the lack of expressiveness. These faces display so little emotion that the voices don't even sound like they're coming out of them. Most are played by seasoned actors doing all they can with an awful script, but the animated acting does them no favors. Like everything else this year, the background art is lazy and generic, striving to cover itself up with assloads of post-processing, and even that falls by the wayside after what I assume was an attempt at a tone-setting opening sequence. They're trying to convey oppressive heat in a beachside atmosphere a la KyoAni's Air, yet the art direction pales in comparison to that show from 2006. Even the big insert song is halfway accompanied by panning shots over CG waves. Gross. Mostly here is the usual visual novel setup schlock, introducing all the generic shit characters you've seen 100 million times. A hikikomori who doesn't talk but has an outgoing personality in the notes she writes, totally new. Mysterious girl who's half the time practical and nice and the other half a riddle-speaking edgelord, never seen that before. Clumsy Miko, tsundere, riveting. The rest is promises of future edge, with scenes like one wherein a character literally says out loud that he's looking for someone he has to kill in front of a police officer, and said officer just completely ignores that this is the thing which he just said. Even if we're to believe that he was mumbling, which isn't conveyed in the acting or visuals, they're the only people in the room and the officer is giving full attention to this man. But I guess he's just that inattentive, since he later loses track of the man by turning his back for like 1 second, even though they're on a beach and nothing should be obstructing his view. But enough of that, let's give some credit where it's due, shall we? This adaptation is an extremely rushed version of what is an absolutely fantastic story. With only having one core to work with, however, Studio Feel has done a tremendous job of including all the most important concepts and scenes from the VN into the adaptation. It's just a huge shame that this won't be getting 26 episodes, since everything is rushed and streamlined with 12. Visual novels are tough to adapt, yet Studio Feel and the director with the first episode have done everything they possibly can to make this show a feasible and realistic portrayal of the source material. Give the show a chance after you've read the visual novel, and you'll understand that the director really got the short end of the stick having only one core to work with. He's doing the absolute best job he can. 10 out of 10. Yeah, something tells me I probably won't give a shit about the Island visual novel, considering that it baseline includes all of the elements present here, which are all fundamentally awful. Dear Studio Feel and director Kawaguchi Keiichiro, please stop producing anything that isn't Galko-chan. All of your other work is fucking worthless.
Change positions. I put one leg on the ceiling and the other one just across the closet door. Oh, fuck me.
So, will I get in trouble if I admit to enjoying this? For reasons unbeknownst to me, the last year has seen a rash of pornographic 5-minute shows released heavily censored on TV and then uncensored online. Most have been awful and left me wondering why I wouldn't just go straight to hardcore porn, but this one resolves that issue by just literally being hardcore porn. The plot is that some hot older woman falls through the ceiling onto the main character's dick while he happens to be masturbating to his mental image of her, and he opportunistically just rapes her. And she loves it. Obviously, this is going to offend a lot of people, but as an evolved human who understands that the only meaningful definition of sanity is being able to parse reality from fantasy, it's kinda hilarious. The artwork is shockingly good, the animation isn't embarrassing, and the overall pacing of the episode is perfect. If you whip your dick out right when you see this girl for the first time, you'll probably come at the same time both characters do. If you've got your technique down, I mean. I'm gonna see myself out of this paragraph. This was sincerely impressive. I expected the opening scene to be an animator showcase for some Kier going ham in the same way that random Sakuga gets pointlessly and unimpressively shoehorned into so much pretentious seasonal crap lately, but as the scene went on, it wasn't just a matter of high-quality animation. The choreography of the match, the timing of each cut, superbly imaginative camera work, and the sheer technicality of some of these poses, all backed by shockingly subtle sound design, made this a talent showcase on every level of production. My only complaint about the this episode visually is inconsistent background quality, but given what I've gotten used to lately, the fact that there's no shortage of well-composed images was a shock to the system. I can't emphasize enough how the timing of each scene contributed to my enjoyment here. Narratively, this is a typical shonen sports thing, which I was unsurprised to find shares its writer with Haikyuu. Much more shocking is that it was based on a manga, yet directed like a film. I have no doubt that the staff behind this show is trying to make a bold statement, and to prove that you can do an all-girl sports drama which gets your blood pumping as much as any boys show without utilizing an ass-based made-up sport. Things do worry me though. Our protagonist is portrayed as though she's somehow so genetically predisposed to badminton that people who practice every day can't even compare to her, and like she plays on some kind of possessed autopilot. I'm sure this is probably just an aesthetic way to convey her skills before we get a more in-depth look at her past, but that's me speaking on faith. I also worry that the hard work versus talent narrative will get overdone when so many sports anime already tackle this in so much depth, and I know we're not going to get anything as deep as ping pong here. The character designs don't do much for me, but weren't a major distraction by the time I was wrapped up in the consistently engaging presentation. Things get a little bit melodramatic for my liking, but it never went all the way to Hanayamata realms, so for now it's okay. I also worry that while I can accept having less than the insane level of Sakuga that we saw here, with artwork as complicated as this, it's going to be extremely evident the second corners are cut. Let's just hope we're completely invested in the characters by the time we hit a slow part. Remember Upote? Probably not, unless you're a gun nut, in which case, hey, they made one for girls. Does anyone care? Is this actually for anyone? I like the dark circles under the eyes of the twins. Actually, to be honest, I could even sit through a show with these character designs if it, contained any content whatsoever. Not gonna lie, I gave up 6 minutes into this one because I know y'all ain't gonna vote for it. That shit has a 4.5 on Mal for good reason. An isekai light novel adaptation. My favorite. Actually, I didn't hate this at all. It's fine. Nothing exceptional about it, but nothing all that embarrassing either, besides an unbelievably generic setting and titling convention. Seriously, how many times can we reuse the name Demon Lord before it becomes literally impossible to remember what show you're talking about? But nah, this one passed for me simply by its lack of cynicism towards what it is. See, it's not just that the main guy goes into a game world where he's all powerful and gets all the bitches, it's that the way he interacts with and understands the game is actually helpful towards being a decent human being. Maybe he contextualizes his own kindness by way of recognizing patterns in game narratives, but that's only because good stories are true to life. The best insight into what kind of person he is comes when he comments that if he had read this girl's story in-game, he would have been cursing the developers for including such a cruel plot point, something my bleeding heart otaku friends who were always the nicest guys used to do. Granted, even this is by no means an original take, but at least it isn't shit. For once this season, the characters looked like they belonged in the backgrounds, and while nothing looked amazing, nothing looked wrong. The Monogatari-esque fanservice scenes were actually pretty hot and a fun time too. Look, I'm not saying I would have chosen to watch this show in any context other than forcing myself to follow every single seasonal until my audience tells me to stop, but this was not torture. Going by my cursory research, it seems like most of the people involved in this production are relatively inexperienced, right down to the voice actors, so maybe that youthful energy is what's protected it. We'll see. Here we've got an unexpected spin-off from the excellent over-the-top thriller game show Kaiji, using similar styles of narration and tension for the sake of comedy instead of balls-tightening drama. Conceptually, following the second-in-command of a black market loan group with a crazy-ass leader lends to some pretty funny scenarios, and Tonegawa's introduction paints him almost as an anti-hero, reminding us that most of the people who fall into debt with a group like this are dumbasses who can't control their own lives. I can't say there was anything in this first episode which I haven't seen done similarly and better in Gintama, but it was okay. Having said that, holy fuck, it is ugly. Fukumoto's art style obviously isn't for everyone, and even the original show wasn't exactly animated all that well, but at least the artwork was detailed and the backgrounds were okay. Tonegawa is well below the bar that Madhouse previously set for themselves, as evidenced by the minutes-long Kaiji recap which opens this episode in the first place. Can we please get a new show this season that isn't visually upstaged by 12-year-old genre predecessors?
Once upon a time, in the magical land of Equestria, One fateful day, the younger unicorn refused to lower the moon to make way for the dawn. The elder sister tried to reason with her, but the bitterness in the young one's heart had transformed her into a wicked mare of darkness, Nightmare Moon.
It's an isekai about a girl saving 100 pretty boys. I actually kinda dig the dreamlike impressionistic artwork. That said, I stopped watching after this sound effect. I did not edit that in, I am serious. So I was just innocently watching this opening scene thinking, hey man, I can relate. Everyone thought I was a little girl at that age, and these character designs are pretty cool. Maybe this is going to warm the cockles of my— oh, it's a fetish thing. I'm legitimately kinda surprised this wasn't based on a cool Kyoshinja manga. Watching an obvious ploy for a fetish that I don't have always feels weird as hell, so I'm just gonna leave this one to the people it's for. And the anime of the week is—
I put on women's clothing and hang around in bars.
In what for now I will herald as the second coming of Detroit Metal City, a Yakuza boss forces 3 of his men to undergo gender reassignment surgery and perform as a back alley idol group. Hilarity ensues as 3 men obsessed with the burning-hearted machismo behind Yakuza culture fail to recognize that they were always more over-emotional, immature, and foolhardy than any real group of teenage girls. Their boss is flippantly cruel and ridiculous, each of them shows potential to eventually stand out as their own characters, and the supporting cast established here all have great chemistry with the concept. My only complaint really is that 24 minutes might be a bit long for an episode of this. Yeah, it's broken into 4 mini segments, but I think DMC's half-length runtime would have been a better fit, as this joke can easily become exhausting. I know a lot of people are gonna rag on this for looking like ass and barely being animated, but it's totally inconsequential to the comedy. Most of my laughs were from the perfectly timed and grossly detailed placement of unique facial expressions, and I can honestly say that I got more out of these moments visually than I did from almost anything else this season so far. Connecting bits be damned. If you like Adult Swim's really dumbass low-budget cartoons with tons of personality, this might be up your alley. I can't promise it'll stay at the top of my list for long if it fails to keep the concept fresh, but my cheeks were hurting by the end of the episode, and that is a great first impression. I haven't covered all of the new shows with the first episode out yet, but since there's so many of them and I don't want this to come out any later than it already is, I'm gonna do the rest in part 2, along with covering second episodes of anything here that you vote for me to keep watching and already has an episode out. Remember to use the polls in the description to vote, and go to my playlist of every video I'm in if you want to hear my voice forever, and become a patron if you want to help me to do this job. Thanks again for watching, I'll see you in the next one.